Hi, everyone. This is Sherry Dutter, your dysgraphia consultant. I'm here today with Lisa Wright. She is a dyslexia specialist, therapist, no, dyslexia teacher. I'm getting it right now, correct?
Therapist,
Therapist from the Texas area. And I am so glad to have her share some of the things that she does in the world of dyslexia. So welcome, Lisa. It's good to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm excited.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about why you are a dyslexia teacher. Like, how did you find that route in your profession?
I have been an elementary education teacher for about 17 years, and I had taught first grade, second grade, and third grade. And I was just looking for kind of just a change in my career. I wanted to do something different. Language arts was always more of my strong suit, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
passion for me. I liked working with words. I loved the word work that I was creating for my students. And so I just kind of stumbled upon, dyslexia, and being dyslexic myself, it just seemed kind of like a natural fit for me that I could relate to the students. I remember going through intervention for dyslexia, and so I just thought it would be a great way that I had a better hand on supporting those students because I had kind of that background experience.
Isn't it amazing how what we struggle with as children is where we end up as adults?
Yes, for sure.
So you taught first, second, and third grade. You don't mention kindergarten in there.
Mhm.
How was teaching language arts in that first versus second versus third grade different? Like what was the gift of each one of those grades? I know this is not a question I asked you ahead of time, but I think it's really important for us as therapists, because a lot of the people that listen to this are occupational therapists. Some of them are teachers, some of them are dyslexia specialists. But what is this? Where do you see the gifts and the weaknesses in the different grades and teaching them?
I started out teaching third grade.
Okay.
I spent about 10 years teaching third grade. And I think in third grade, it's kind of that ideal that in third grade, now you're reading to learn versus learning to
Mm-hmm.
read. So in our state, we have a state assessment, a very important,
Mm-hmm.
state assessment that we all work towards the whole entire year. So a lot of our time and attention is developing reading comprehension skills, vocabulary, and activities that go towards that state assessment. So spending a lot of time on spelling or word work or
Mm.
handwriting, that was very much on the back burner.
Oh, okay.
As we were really working towards that state assessment. I would say, it would be kind of like the last on my list. And, being in first and second grade, first grade especially, is more of a foundational piece
Okay.
because that is where they're learning to read. And so, really building on more of the phonics skills or word families or those sight words. That was really kind of where I liked teaching the most because I knew like this was such a foundational part
Mm-hmm.
um, that, and that was kind of my strong suit, which is kind of strange even being dyslexic because the phonics part is always what's hard. But I enjoy teaching it. So I really enjoyed
You
that.
may have been reinforcing your own weakness by doing that.
Right. Yes. And so I think first and second grade, it's just really building on the language piece so that they can learn to read, so that they can make that huge jump to third grade. So
Yeah. You are talking about the state assessment. I think that's across the country and across the world at this point, that assessment is driving how the students are being taught. It's interesting to me that you say that spelling was on the back burner. I hear a lot of verbiage coming from teachers that not necessarily that spelling is on the back burner, but spelling isn't I guess maybe back burner is the way to say it, but spelling isn't taught.
Right.
And spelling errors are kind of forgiven, but there
Mm-hmm.
has to be a point in time where that forgiveness ends. And I think that one of the things that's catching up with us is the lack of time to teach spelling. By the time these kids are hitting middle school, they're set in their learning pathways of dealing with the phonics and the
Yes.
reading comprehension and reading fluency, that it catches up with them at some point.
Yes, and I would say, there have been kind of just different ideals that have, happened over time that, they would learn spelling through their reading, or now it's back to let's talk about word families and using words their way. And, so
Mhm.
I think the shift has kind of come back for full circle because teachers would often comment, well, my students, they just don't know how to spell. Well, hold them
Mhm.
accountable through science, through social studies, through mathematics. If they have to write out an answer, hold them accountable. But those their subject teachers versus language arts wouldn't hold them accountable because they're just counting for the content, of whatever subject
Mm.
versus, counting for the spelling because maybe in their mind it's not their subject, they don't have to teach
Yeah.
it, so I'm just
Mhm.
looking for, did they get the answer correct,
Mhm. Yeah.
so I think it's kind of starting to come back around where, we haven't really been doing a great job of teaching the spelling or the phonics, and so we're trying to find and bring it back into and make
Bring it
it
back
more of
in.
a
Mhm.
focus. Mhm.
So that's it's just it blows my mind. It's so interesting how the things just kind of come full circle again and again and again. So how are you working with students today? Tell us about where you're working, what kind of programs you're working on, and just tell us a little bit more.
So after 20 years of being in public education and 4 of those years as being a dyslexia therapist, I decided that I wanted to branch off and become a private dyslexia therapist. So this has
Okay.
been very new. As of June, I've been working privately with students with dyslexia. And so it's been pretty fun adventure in that respect. But when I
So does that mean you're officially retired?
or semi-retirement. I haven't collected retirement yet. So, but yeah, so it's been pretty exciting to really be able to work with students one-on-one, have a little bit of flexibility and kind of maybe prescribe something more specific or unique to each student versus having a whole
Mhm.
classroom and just sticking to like one program and hopefully
Mhm.
everybody is trucking along,
Yeah. So do you
But
see kids more often or less often than you were doing in the public school?
I see students about 3 days a week right now, just for the summertime. And during the school year, I had about a caseload of 40 students. And during my school day,
Full day.
I had about 9 groups in my day. So my door was pretty much a revolving door of kids coming in and out all day. So
And when you say all day, are you doing like a before school and after school kind of program, or are they coming to you throughout the school day in your private practice?
So when I was in the classroom, it was just during the school day.
Mhm.
My time was pretty protected as far as before school. Now I did do some tutoring after school, but as far as my caseload, my time was pretty much protected within the school hours. And then privately, it's been during the day. So
Okay. That's interesting to me that you're able to have kids coming to you throughout the school day. So that's why I asked that question. It just is very interesting to have the interaction and the relationship that you have with the schools, that you can pull them out and see the private tutoring. So that's really cool.
mhm.
You told me before we got on air that you have a program called Take Flight. What is that all about?
I was trained through the Texas Scottish Rite Hospital Take Flight program. And it is the dyslexia program that the school district that I was working with uses. And so that's where I was doing my training. It is just a multisensory, systematic, sequential approach to intervening with dyslexia to provide that intervention. So it has components of, the phonics, the handwriting, the spelling, associating a letter sound with your mouth picture, so that you're looking in the mirror, you're looking to see what's the shape of your mouth, what does your voice do, and then associating a cue card with your mouth picture.
So it's a lot of audio and visual interaction. What about a lot of kinesthetic style approaches? Are you having them do anything where they're doing movement along with their phonics?
The skywriting piece of doing the linkages, so if you were to learn a new letter, a sound, and a key word, then you would link it together with skywriting and doing the cursive. And then anytime that we were talking about is the vowel long or short, I might do some kind of hand signals to go along to help them remember if it's a long or short vowel sound. But also when they are using their mouth pictures to associate the letter sounds, they would have to pull down on a cookie sheet. If I said hat, they would have to pull down at with the mouth pictures. And so that was just a little bit of a kinesthetic activity too.
Okay. All right. So when you're doing the writing and the spelling, what programs are you incorporating?
For writing and spelling, if it is something with the handwriting, and I noticed with somebody with the dysgraphia, then using the handwriting without tears. But as far as if somebody, a student that I have is dyslexic or dysgraphic, both, then we would incorporate that handwriting practice because it's also part of that linkages.
Okay.
And then, our school district was kind of going back to the words their way. So a lot of the students were, starting to work on the word sorts, and, I would support them with what we've done in the program with what they can do in the classroom too.
While I was writing my book, I picked up the 3rd grade Words Their Way book. So I got to see a lot of the sight words that 3rd grade was using, and I try to incorporate those into overall what I'm looking at with my students and really trying to focus on those. That's where some of the instigation behind my body sentence alphabet, which you have learned because you are a graduate of Handwriting Brain Body Disconnect, the course. Tell me a little bit about how integrating what you've learned from Scottish Wright as a reading specialist and the Handwriting Brain Body Disconnect course, how has that all linked together for you?
I think it's given me a little bit more insight to notice, okay, is there something more when a teacher says, he just doesn't like to write. He, he'll sit in class all day long and won't write even a sentence. We'll talk about it. We'll brainstorm together. He can tell me all these things, but then when it comes down to, putting it down on paper, he just cannot put it down on paper. And I'm like, okay, so let's kind of dive in a little bit more. Maybe we need to do some more assessments. Maybe there is some disconnect with, maybe he just doesn't visualize the word, maybe he can't visualize the spelling, and that's where we need to kind of diagnose or figure out. I really do like the body spelling that you have mentioned in your book, and I think it's just kind of another fun way or kinesthetic way for them, especially maybe those sight words, that those are those words that just don't have a pattern. And so if you kind of put some kind of connection to it, whether your body's moving or circling the parts that are, that don't spell the way that they sound, those things. Another one is where I put the sight word down at their feet on a sentence strip. And then I learned this through the course, that they stomp out the letters
Oh,
of the word. And so I have
getting
kind of,
that really deep proprioception through their legs tells them how many times how many words or letters there are in the word count.
right. Yeah. So I think that that's great. So, I mean, anytime that I can make something more multisensory, writing in sand, my kids love that, writing in that sand, but, they really are more in tune to, the letters and how to spell the
Mm-hmm.
word, just by putting just that one little thing,
Mm-hmm.
to help them.
I'm glad that you were able to take something away from that course and you've been able to integrate it well into your practice. All that being said, putting all that stuff together, still, what is your favorite do-it-yourself treatment?
Um, I feel like, I mean, I really do like, um, I do like the the hand motions with, the spelling, doing your B and D, and then kind of stomping out the word. I think that that really just, and those three things, that saying, I feel like those are the things that
Okay.
really,
So you had
they,
already answered that. Forgive me.
yeah, yeah, no, that's okay. No, but I think that those are my favorite. I mean, they really enjoy it, but I think it just really makes a connection for them.
Thank you. Just wanted to reinforce that. And I know I cut you off there. I, it's really interesting the way we really navigate to a specific task over and over and over again, but that gets the kids used to it and reinforces and it reinforces and it reinforces and it builds those experiences so that we can learn from them much easier.
Mhm.
What would you say your biggest challenge is?
When it's the carryover,
Uh,
you provide the therapy, you provide the instruction, but then the carryover, sometimes into the classroom or at home, so you can kind of go two steps forward in group and in class and in your private practice or whatever, but then it's the carryover later on, then you're like, okay,
mhm,
we have to go back over it again.
mhm.
And not to point fault or anything like that, I think it's just teachers are very, um, overloaded with all the things,
Yes.
and they don't know specifically what I'm teaching, and a parent doesn't necessarily know specifically what I'm teaching because they're not in the session. So
Mhm.
the importance of it, they've got other important things to do, and so it's just kind of that carryover, with that though.
So thank you. Yes, carryover is a large challenge. That's one of the reasons that I moved on to my next phase. And I have a new program that I just launched, and that's royalty rights. And I'm really looking at helping the therapists that I'm working with build that relationship with the teacher and giving them strategies. So it's been very interesting that the therapists that have signed up, what they're learning, and it's only been a month that we've been working together. So it's been really fun. And so that greatest challenge is definitely universal, and it doesn't matter where you're coming from. It is just one of those things that we all need to work on, and we all know that communication is probably our biggest fault as well.
And not to say that classroom teachers aren't willing to learn or try,
Right.
but just the amount of responsibilities that a classroom teacher does have, that it really can be challenging for them
Yes.
to continue on what you're doing. So,
Yes.
um,
Yeah. And learning to navigate that challenge is difficult for a therapist, and I really think that we need to be sensitive to it. So thank you.
mm.
um so you mentioned to me something about a twist on the word dysgraphia, dys-taught-ia. I need to get into that a little bit. Please talk to me a little about dys-taught-ia.
So, you know, as a therapist, you know, we work on the spelling, we work on the language part of it, and then we are noticing with the cursive handwriting. You know, we use the cursive, especially in dyslexia, with the linkages because it helps with reversals.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, you hear teachers comment, you know, oh, their handwriting is horrible, and or you know, they're starting from the bottom to the top, or they're doing all these, you know, weird, crazy things. I don't get it. And or I might get a referral and say, can you look at him? I think that she might be dysgraphic. Can you look at their handwriting? And
Mm-hmm.
then you kind of have to say, okay, well, have you given some explicit instruction on how to do the handwriting? Have you sat down at your teacher table? Maybe let's
Mm.
try some intervention first in the classroom, give it 3-4 weeks, you know, really explicitly teach, pull them off to the side, and then come back and see, you know, is that, you know, a product of dys-taught-ia, you know, where they haven't been taught explicitly, or is it
Ah,
really, you know, is it really that dysgraphic piece where really they've been given some intervention and explicit instruction in the classroom, but it's just still not working? Then we need to look at, okay, what other resources or what, you know,
okay.
assessment can we do?
Okay. I misunderstood dys-taught-ia as being taught in that whole one specific way, and it's not working for them, and you have to almost unteach to reteach.
Uh,
So,
right.
so
Yep.
thank you for clarifying that, because I think there are that nuance is there, and it could go both ways.
Yeah.
So, how much of your day is handwriting?
With my private students, I probably spend about 10 to 15 minutes. I've got about 2 or 3 of them that I specifically work with the handwriting without tears with them. So I spend about, in a 55-minute session, I
Thank
spend
you.
about 10 to 15 minutes with them on their
Okay.
handwriting. When I was in the classroom, it just kind of depended because so many groups, there was only so much time. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe 5 to 10 minutes each day, or as, you know, as often as I could.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely try to incorporate it as much as I can. And even if they're not necessarily diagnosed with dysgraphia or something like that, but if they've got a bad habit, I'm going to be like, you know, we're writing a cursive, or you got to hold that pencil
Mm-hmm.
right. You know, I'm a
Mm-hmm.
stickler for that. So I hold them accountable.
Yeah. Do you find a lot of them are blending their cursive and their print because they're having trouble remembering? Or is that
Um,
or is that a habit of the adult and not the child?
I haven't noticed that with the students yet. I think that they're still really thinking about, okay, is this a B or is this an F? You know, because it is somewhat similar in how you do it, but so they're really kind of having to think about it and take their time with
Mhm,
it, but they haven't quite blended it yet. So,
mhm. So all that coming back to that, my big question of the day, how much of your day then is really dysgraphia? You're talking about all the dyslexia strategies that you're using. Do you find isolation between the dyslexia, the dysgraphia? How much of your day is the dysgraphia itself?
um, not as much, I think, right at the moment with the dysgraphia than it is with the dyslexia.
Okay.
So I think the students that I do have, we're kind of just working more on the spelling part of that and the handwriting part of that before we kind of get to actually written composition. If that makes sense, or if that's kind of answering your question.
No, that is. That is. So before I get to my last two questions, do you have any questions for me?
Um, Not that I can think of.
Okay. You've
Yeah.
been working with me for a while, off and on. One thing I've got to say, though, before I go on and I ask my last two questions that I ask everyone, is you sent me a video a few months ago of two adorable children that were spelling the word because, and I have put it on my website and linked it to the Body Sentence Alphabet. Your children are going through the word because, and it's absolutely adorable, and I will link that in the show notes. It is the uh, cute video. And you do a lot of videos. You are on um, Facebook and YouTube with your videos, I believe.
Just Facebook.
Just
Mhm.
Facebook? Okay. Okay. So check out some of those videos because they're absolutely adorable. She uses her kids a lot, so they're getting a lot of airtime and they're adorable.
Thank you.
So one of the things that I'm asking a lot of the therapists that I'm working with, no, you're not an occupational therapist, and I totally understand that, but I think that this tagline from the American Occupational Therapy Association really fits everyone. So what does living life to the fullest mean to Lisa?
I believe that you can't let your disability hold you back with being who you want to be.
Okay.
If you are dyslexic or dysgraphic and you have a desire to be an author, then don't let that disability hold you back. Find somebody who has those strengths that you are weak in and work together.
Oh,
Or
powerful.
yeah, so find technology resources, that are allowing you to, get your thoughts down on the paper for you. If there's a disconnect to what you want to say in your brain to down onto your pencil, then find that technology or find that person who can dictate that for you. But don't let your disability limit to what you can do. I'm dyslexic. I own it, but it doesn't limit me.
Okay.
I find people who are smarter than me in other areas, that maybe I lack in. That's not my skill to help me. Because I know it's sometimes better to be in a collaborative effort than it is just all by myself. So there are a lot of people who have these kinds of disabilities that are entrepreneurs, that are architects, that are all these other things. And that's the thing that I tell my students: you need to advocate for yourself. You are dyslexic. Own it. It's not anything to really be embarrassed about. It's just something that you have to work around, and I wish I would have known that or had somebody, and maybe my mom probably told me this all the time. And of course you don't always listen to your mom, but
Mhm.
I wish I would have really had more of that mindset when I was younger, just to be like, this is who I am and I just have to work around it. Doesn't mean that I'm dumb, but I just need to find a better way to get to that goal in a different way. So,
Yeah, I know. I struggled to get through school, and when I was going through school, they did not have supports like they do today. So the supports are out there. Use them.
mhm.
So, unlike or like the OT Association, I'm sure you belong to some kind of association that might have a tagline. Do you have a tagline in any of the organizations that you associate with?
I think, with today's kind of pandemic and the way that the world is going right now, we hear that we're all in this together.
Hmm.
And I kind of take that in a different spin as far as what we're talking right now. We're all in this together. Like I said, I can relate to my students. So I'm in it with you. Your parents are in it with you, your teachers are here with you, so we're all in this together to help you be successful. So like you said, we've got great supports now that, lean on them. So.
Wonderful. Thank you. That is true. We are all in this together at this point. How about your favorite podcast or book? What do you recommend?
My favorite book is The Dyslexic Advantage, by Brock L. Eid, I think is how you say it, and Fernette Eid. The book just kind of explains how individuals with dyslexia share a unique learning style, and this style is creating some advantages in the classroom or in their job or at home. So as a dyslexic, you look at the world in a different way. You kind of see more of the big picture versus the small details sometimes, but there's an advantage to having our dyslexic brain. So, it's just kind of really figuring out what that is for you as a dyslexic, and then how can you work it towards your advantage. So I think it's great for parents to read with their, not with their student, but, you know, to understand their child with dyslexia. I think, you know, it kind of gives them some good insight.
I love it. I love it. That was the Dyslexic Advantage. So is there anything else that you'd like to share before we head out of here?
Another resource that I follow is I get the OT Toolbox newsletter.
By
And
Colleen Beck.
yes, and so I just, in there, I kind of check that out. I get a newsletter all the time, and so I just kind of check that out for just other little activities. I mean, I know I'm not specialized in OT, but I like the multisensory components of it. And I think it, you know, I can adapt it to older students because I know some of it is for, you know, the littles. But I like that I can adapt it, and it just kind of gives me just some other fun little activities that I can do that I can check out for free or whatever. So
Colleen has some really amazing tools. So
mhm.
thank you. I'm going to reach out to her again and see if I can get her to have an interview with me so we can learn more from what she's doing. So
Yeah.
thank you for reminding me to reach out again.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you for coming on. I hope I was respectful of your time today. I want to say this is Sherry Dotterer, your Dysgraphia consultant. I want to thank Lisa Wright for being here. She is, again, from the Texas Dyslexia, the Scottish Wright program down in
In
that
Dallas.
state of Texas, down near Dallas. And she is a dysgraphia specialist certified in handwriting, brain body disconnect course. So thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you.
All right. So long now. Thank you. Yeah.